Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Anthony Ippolito about The Offer, which is streaming on Paramount Plus. Welcome to the show, man. Well, welcome back to the show. It's so good to see you.
Oh, thanks for having me again, man. It's great to see you again.
It's so great. This is crazy because I remember reading the tweet that said that you were cast as Al Pacino in Paramount Plus's miniseries The Offer.
Yeah,
And
man.
now we're talking about it now and it's out. Like, this is crazy, man.
Dude, how wild is it, man? I can't even begin to explain that, man. It's so cool that you were able to see the thing come out. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and it's so crazy, and it's out and everything, and people can kind of see it. And I feel like the whole series, there was this kind of like anticipation of it coming out. Has it hit you that it's finally actually out there for people to see?
Not really. It's like, yeah, it's pretty crazy. There was a pretty quick turnaround with this. Like, we filmed in, I want to say like August, and it's already out, which is really wild. So yeah, it hasn't really hit me yet.
Are you getting used to these kind of new kind of methods of the word kind of basically getting out? Like, there's the announcement that they're making this, mini series about the making of The Godfather. Then there's like casting, and then it's like Anthony Ippolito's been cast to play Al Pacino, and then there's trailers and it's out. Like, there's layers and like steps of it actually getting out there.
Yeah. There really are, and it's fun to like watch the progression. Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly into just like the making of the thing. That's my favorite part. But it's really cool to see how, each streaming service has its own. Yeah, it's really cool.
There's a lot at play here. Like, we're not gonna sugarcoat it. Like, this is big shoes to fill. This is Al Pacino.
Yeah. It's super intimidating, like shaking in my boots type of intimidating. Yeah, it was crazy. It's still crazy to even like think about it. Yeah, it's one of those overwhelming things. Yeah.
So there's so much, but I just kind of want to know, like, there's obviously like the aesthetic because, you're going back in time with the creation of one of the greatest movies of all time. There's how are you going to pull off Al Pacino? Like, what are you going to look like? What are you going to sound like? What's kind of like, what are the steps in early kind of conversations of how you're going to play Al Pacino? I'm just curious about that.
Well, after I found out I got the part, I was like, okay, so I'm going to LA. 'Cause I'm a New York guy, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm moving for a little bit. And I had a phone call with Dexter Fletcher, who's one of the directors and a producer on the Offer. And, he's great. He's done so much stuff that I admire. And I had a really cool phone call with him where he spoke to me a little bit about Al and where he was at mentally when he was making this project, and how he was, kind of just a really passionate, really talented theater actor, but was kind of unknown in like the LA scene. And
absolutely.
He went up against a lot of adversity trying to get cast for this, and even during the filming of it after he'd been cast. So it's trying to just soak up as much information as possible, I think, is like the first step, like the research element.
Oh, absolutely. And the reason I kind of started Popternative is I loved having these conversations with storytellers like yourselves, where we're kind of diving into, the behind the scenes aspect of it, because people love that stuff. You know what I mean? For you specifically as well, like when you were reading the script and everything, like I just love, the dinner party conversation, like the dinner scenes with, Pacino and Ruddy. Like, that was like my favorite part about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're getting it. Yeah. It's like, you're seeing behind the curtain, and you're getting to see like what those conversations might've been like. And, like the people underneath, cause they're icons now, like, Pacino, Brando, and I think it's really cool that you're able to see kind of the nuts and bolts of everything and how it came to be.
What was like the reaction from like your family and friends about, one, being cast on The Offer, Paramount Plus, but also like playing Al Pacino? Like, what was that reception like?
Oh man, I mean, my family and like most of my friends are like massive fans of The Godfather. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's like
the best movie of all time.
There you go. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it was like the most surreal thing ever. And Dude, I can't. I don't know how to explain what that feels like. It was very, very crazy and very surreal, and like kind of just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like overwhelming. Like I felt like a huge sense of responsibility, but I mean, the feeling and like being able to tell my family and my friends, especially a couple of my closest friends are like big fans of the movie. So it was really wild.
What was the like talks with like the costume designers and the aesthetic component of things? What was that like?
Oh, that was a really cool element of this project because obviously they, the Godfather is so well known that like they were very meticulous and careful about costume design, set design. Everything was really, really closely looked at and taken care of really well. And it was a really important part of this project. So that really helped like the world building, element of it. And then like when you're stepping on a set and you're, wearing the, like close to the exact stuff that Pacino was wearing, and you're on like a exactly recreated set that's on the Paramount lot. Like it was really, it was awesome. It was so surreal.
I can't even imagine, not even just specifically with like your role, but I can't even imagine the task of like what's gonna be like in terms of the making of the Godfather. Like there's so much, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, especially once you start getting into like the mob stuff too, because that's when it really, now you're like, oh my gosh. But that's, I think, what's like a really cool part about the show is how they have, the story of the making of it from the, creative perspective of Coppola and Pacino and Brando and Puzo. But they also have like a mob story inside of the show about the making of a mob movie, which, and it's also based on a lot of truth too. So the fact that they were able to do that, and I think that, they were able to orchestrate everything so well. I think it makes it really cool.
What was premiere week like for you? Like just kind of seeing like the reaction and that it was finally coming out. What was that just kind of crazy for you and the cast, just like the week of it coming out?
Yeah. Well, I flew to LA with my mom and I got to take her to like the premiere, which was really cool. And that was on like the Paramount lot, which was, surreal too. And then, and I guess just like the anticipation of everything, I got to like, hear a couple of my friends' reactions when it finally got released, and,
so cool.
It's really,
Last time you came on the show, we were kind of talking about, some of your other work as well, like Pixels and everything. We were saying that like, it's finally now like the narrative's changing a little bit, that it's like cool to be a geek and all of that stuff. Video game culture, geek culture is like mainstream culture now and everything. Is it kind of safe to say too, that you look at a lot of that content out there right now? Like, you worked on Pixels and you see all the Marvel DC stuff. Like, is that kind of on your mind a little bit about like worlds that you want to maybe potentially dive in? Or is it kind of one of those Anthony Ippolito just goes where the opportunities are? It is what it is. But those worlds are pretty crazy right now.
Yeah, those worlds are really crazy. And it's really interesting how COVID affected, like box office stuff and streaming services are really like on the rise. And a lot of people are kind of adapting how they take in their entertainment. It's going to be interesting to see like how it ends up like leveling out across the next couple of years. But yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to anything like that. I mean, some of my favorite films, like I really enjoy some of those, Marvel movies and stuff like that. So I guess it's just one of those things, kind of what you just said, which is like, like wherever the opportunities are, it's like something where wherever if I'm drawn to it,
I feel
the budget, that doesn't really matter much.
I feel like I've interviewed a lot of people where it's like they have like a vision. They're like, I love working in comedy. I want to do comedy. And I'm kind of like, oh, absolutely. Then you have a lot of people that are like, I go where the opportunities are. I want to kind of, spread my wings a little bit, do a lot of different stuff, right? Like, I just feel like it depends on the storyteller.
Yeah. I mean, there's situations like this where it's like a complete no-brainer. Yeah, I think someone asked me a question once, like, oh, like, what made you accept this role? And I was like, how, like, what do you mean? But every role, every story is so specific. you know, that it's just like, we're, you know, whatever comes.
I think the intrigue about that announcement too, Anthony, like that you were cast as Al Pacino, was like, what's it gonna be like? Like, what are we gonna see? You know what I mean? Like, are we like that?
Yeah.
I think that was the main thing, right? Like, what are the scenes gonna be like, right? And we saw it. There are conversations, there's prepping, there's the negotiations. Like, we saw the negotiations and like the discussions. Like, that was the coolest thing.
Oh, I think those were really like the coolest moments to make as well. And because you wonder as an actor what kind of stuff must have gone on behind the scenes of something like that, and like, did they know that they had something in the works? They were on the precipice of, like, you know, one of the greatest films ever made.
Yeah.
So
I still can't believe that we're doing this interview right now. I was like, I remember being like, oh my goodness, like, I just spoke to him like 3 months ago for her Grand Army, and like, he's gonna be Pacino.
Yeah, dude. I picture out what was going in my head. I was like, oh, this is, it was wild. And like I said, it came completely out of left field, man. I was at a birthday party and I just got like an email, take a look at the role of Al Pacino. And I was like, oh God, whoa, you know, so
it is. It's so crazy. Before we wrap up too, I mean, we've established, you know, Anthony Ippolito as a storyteller. What excites you about storytelling, man, specifically these days?
Oh, I mean, well, I like, you know, I'm a big music guy too. I like to paint. Any like artistic medium that captures humanity or something about humanity, you know, and there's like, you know, you feel like you learn something. It's almost like sustenance, like you gain something from it. And, you know, I think there's a lot of value in that as it pertains to this story, especially with, like, you know, my character here. I think that, you know, icons are put on a pedestal in a lot of ways, and rightfully so. But I think there's also some like dehumanizing that goes on in that process. And I think what's really cool is being able to kind of, in this story, see kind of the people that they actually kind of were as closely as possible, especially like early Pacino, because, you know, he was a guy, like Bob Evans said, I'm not letting a runt play Michael. You know, he was just a short guy. He was, like I said, kind of unknown. And
Bob Evans was not a fan of casting Pacino for that.
He wasn't, you know, and I don't know, you know, I'd encourage people to take a look at a lot of Pacino's earlier work because he was really brilliant. But like Panic in Needle Park, and, you know, Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, you know, he was a brilliant actor. But he had just done Panic in Needle Park. That was kind of all he had film wise under his belt. And so he was just some quirky dude from the Bronx. And, you know, that's really who the man was. And he blossomed into this amazing storyteller and amazing artist, and gave the world so much beautiful art. But it's really cool to just like get to see a little bit more into who that person was and who the other people were that made this thing. So.
Oh, absolutely. No, so well said. Anthony, thanks so much for coming back on Popternative to chat about The Offer. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. That was a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, man, this was so cool. So yeah, Paramount Plus, The Offer, they could check that out. And they can keep up to date with you. You have an Instagram account, right? They could follow you there.
Yeah. I have an Instagram, Anthony Ippolito _ Yeah.
Amazing. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Look up for Anthony Ippolito as Al Pacino in The Offer, streaming on Paramount Plus. Until next time, this is Anthony and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.